Over 1,600 Indigo flights cancelled on December 5th. (4,063 flights cancelled in 1 week. Nearly 6 lakh passengers hit. Turmoil ahead of winter rush. Airline industry in tailspin. How to fix aviation crisis. Indigo Meltdown Roundtable.
Hello and welcome then to this week's Roundtable. It's been a week like no other in India's civil aviation history. Unprecedented chaos caused by a near meltdown of India's dominant private airline, Indigo Airlines. Amidst the anger of thousands of stranded passengers who suffered from over 1,600 flights being cancelled on a single day, there are calls for accountability and a complete relook at our civil aviation systems. Today we bring in experts to tell us the road ahead for India's skies. Lots of questions to answer them on the round table. Sumit Susilan, Chairman Divine Air, they work with VVIPs, charter the aircraft. Captain Amit Singh, founder Safety Matters. Sanjay Lazar, aviation expert, CEO, Aviation Consultants. Jitendra Bhargava, former executive director at Air India. Sanat Kaul, Chairman IFAD, former Joint Secretary, Civil Aviation Ministry. Sherbir Panag, he is a financial crimes lawyer. I appreciate all of you joining me. I'm going to go question by question and then get all your views on an issue that concerns anyone who's flying in the country at the moment. The first big question, should we hold Indigo alone responsible for the chaos, or must the government take responsibility for it? Is Indigo alone responsible, or must the government take responsibility? Remember, that's precisely the question I posed to the Civil Aviation Minister, K. Mohan Naidu. Before I come to my guests, let's just listen in to what Mohan Naidu said when I asked him this direct question. Who is accountable? Listen in.
मैं ये कहना चाहूँगा कि जो ये इंडिगो का क्राइसिस हुआ है, ये ग्रॉस मिसमैनेजमेंट ऑफ इंडिगो है. उनके इंटरनल क्रू रोस्टरिंग सिस्टम जो ठीक चलना चाहिए था, जो उनके हिसाब से ही उन्होंने कंप्लायंस लिया था कि न्यू गाइडलाइंस के तहत या जो भी सेफ्टी नॉर्म्स है उसके तहत जो कंप्लायंस लिया उन्होंने, तो उसके तहत वो ठीक चलना चाहिए था. तो उन्होंने अपने अंदर जो इंटरनल क्रू रोस्टरिंग मैनेजमेंट का जो है उसमें गड़बड़ी करी. उसके वजह से एक टम्बलिंग ब्लॉक की तरह ऑपरेशंस 3rd को 4th को 5th को हमने जो कैंसिलेशंस देखे या डिलेज एट एयरपोर्ट्स देखे वो सब देखने को मिला. तो डेफिनेटली द फर्स्ट थिंग दैट आई वुड वांट टू मेक इट वेरी वेरी क्लियर इज दैट द मिस्टेक लाइज एट इंडिगो एंड देयर मैनेजमेंट. हाउ दे हैव डन द रोस्टर, हाउ दे हैव मैनेज्ड द ऑपरेशंस. So that is the first mistake that they have done.
So the prime responsibility is being pinned on Indigo. Now just to explain, how did Indigo go into this tailspin? The DGCA notified the flight duty time limitation norms in January 2024, but the truth is Indigo failed to hire extra pilots that were needed. The airline's pilot strength, in fact, declined from 5,463 in March to 5,085 in December. In 4 meetings with the Director General for Civil Aviation, DGCA, Indigo maintained it was ready for these new pilot norms. Did the DGCA check Indigo's claim? How did it allow it then to increase winter ops? Indigo's crew management software wobbled after the new rules came in. 1,200 flights were cancelled in November. Indigo still told DGCA all's under control. On December 4th, matters reached the ceiling because crew management software went haywire. 625 cancelled. Crew management software collapsed on the next day, that was last Friday. 1,623 flights cancelled. That's really the backdrop to all that we've seen. Remember? Okay, I just want to also put the pilot to aircraft ratio. Indigo 13:1, Air India is 26:1, Akasa Air 15:1 aircraft, and SpiceJet 7-1. Remember my first question. Who is to be held accountable? Is it primarily Indigo? Jitendra Bhargava, you kick it off because you've been among those who from day one have been saying Indigo has much to answer for. Quick answers from all six of you. You start first.
Rajdeep, it's entirely Indigo, who should be held accountable, the management, the board of directors. There are people who are suggesting that DGCA ought to have been monitoring the status of pilots' recruitment, induction, availability. To me, that would be interference in the working of an autonomous company, which is accountable to the board, and the management should be totally this thing. If DGCA was to start interfering and seeking information on these kind of things, prior to any meltdown, then the Indigo management could have come and the board of directors would have come. Why are you interfering in our affairs?
No, so is it interference or regulation?
Indigo management
was it interference or regulation? The DGCA is the regulator. Surely the regulator should have known that an airline is not adhering to the norms all these months?
No. No, Rajdeep, let me put it this way. The date of implementation of the second phase of FDTL was 1st of November. Now, why would DGCA ask whether you're prepared or not? They have told DGCA in very categorical words that we are ready to comply with the revised regulation. Now, if DGCA was to say, come and show me the data, how prepared are you? To me, that is interference. Even in the case of Air India, DGCA had never done this.
Okay. So you're putting the blame primarily on Indigo. Sanjay Lazar, as someone who I've been seeing on social media raising several questions also about governments handling DGCA, should the prime accountability be that of the airline? It's a private airline. It's a listed company with a board of directors of some real A-listers. Should they not have got their act together?
Rajdeep, I disagree with Mr. Bhargav, my former director and boss. The law provides every airline will be monitored by the DGCA and the ministry. I will cite you the rules, Section 3 and Section 8 of the DGCA car, Aircraft Act 1934, Rules 1937, Rule 134A and Section 3 all mandate that every airline will submit its standard force, will submit its schedule in advance. These will be monitored by FID. After the Ahmedabad crash, Rajdeep, Air Marshal Keeler, I believe, was in charge of that. He wrote a report and they created a flight inspectorate directorate. There are officers who are deputed to that FID who are supposed to monitor induction of pilots on a monthly basis. It's not interference, sir. It is regulation. It has been done by Air India. I myself, in my last years, when I was grounded medically, sat in operations and did schedules. Right. Rajdeep, 2 months before the winter schedule came in, we ran the entire schedule. The DGCA was sent the standard force, the 7 sets per aircraft or the 12 sets per aircraft, the way we operate. They have a right to do it. It is their bounden duty. So therefore, I saw your interview with the minister that day at that panel, and I wanted to write to you to tell you the minister does not even know his car. He does not even know the act that he changed in Parliament a few months ago when he called it the Bharatiya Sahita. You know, it's all there. Rajdeep, it's there. The documents are there. I can share it with you. So it is
it's very interesting. It's very interesting today. It's very interesting. DGCA has now suspended 4 of its officers, allegedly for dereliction of duty. So clearly there is a DGCA angle. But Sanat Kaul, you've been a former Joint Secretary, Ministry of Civil Aviation. Should we be pinning the door at the government or indeed DGCA's door, or as a private airline, as I say, with a stellar board of directors, with a publicly listed company? Could Indigo have got away so easily by saying, look, it was, and they blamed everyone. At the moment, they don't seem to blame themselves. They blame the fact that there was congestion in the air, the fact that there were other issues, but do not blame themselves.
Yes, I would put Indigo as fully responsible, but I will give, say, 90% responsible and 10% to DGCA, because DGCA has a supervisory role and they should have ensured that they had taken enough pilots to meet the new FDTL guidelines.
So how do you do that? Are you saying every month they should be monitoring whether Indigo is hiring pilots? Is that the job in your view of DGCA?
Month, but this was a new thing and they could have taken some steps to monitor it. But That's why I said 90% or even 95% Indigo is responsible.
Okay.
But there should have been some supervision. I mean, there has to be a due diligence, by DGCA that, all the airlines, I'm not talking about Indigo, that all of them are following the new guidelines. That's the main thing. And to that extent,
Dr. Sumit Susilan, your chairman divine hai. Do you believe that Indigo can get away by simply giving extraneous factors responsible for the meltdown, not taking enough corporate responsibility for perhaps failure in governance?
No, Rajesh, no way. It's an entirely responsibility of Indigo because Indigo is the airline which know how many aircraft they're getting every week. Average every 9 days they're getting delivery of one aircraft, and keeping this thing in mind, they had bidded for the winter schedule, and on that basis only they had got the more sectors in the winter schedule, as well as they have contracted with multiple companies for pilot trainings. So now every month they have intake of pilot, but from past 6 months they are not recruiting pilots. They are in cost cutting mode. So now, at the time of Parliament session, when the winter schedule is starting for Parliament, the same time why they had gone in this way, they cancelled all the flights is something pre-planned because every airline operator
You're saying
know
Indigo
about.
pre-planned it? You're
Of course.
claiming Indigo pre-planned this to arm twist the government? Is that what you're saying? So that the
Definitely,
FDTL
Indigo's
norms
aware.
would not come in place?
Yeah, if every airline can do that thing, why the only company Indigo with 65% market share can't do that? Until November, yes, they cancel multiple flights, but they're not said that we have any hurdles. They are coming to DGC office, giving their report, saying yes, by first week of December everything will be normal. Then suddenly,
Okay.
why 1600 flight got cancelled? Definitely, Indigo
So
was aware they have the pilots, and last month they are saying they don't have pilots, and that weather issues and all. How come? So
Okay,
definitely,
Captain Amit
Indigo
Singh?
had to be blamed.
Captain Amit Singh, do you believe Indigo pulled the wool over DGCA's eyes or DGCA turned a blind eye? And what about the board of directors?
Look, when you investigate an incident like this, the proximate cause is yes, Indigo did it, because that is the first entity which comes into fore. So, but the root cause is something else. Root cause means if you eliminate that issue, it will not happen again. You can blame Indigo, yes, for their faults, etc. You can penalize them, but it will happen again. So, to go to the root cause, you have to go deeper inside.
So what's the root
I'll
cause?
cite your
What is the
interview.
root cause?
So I'm coming to that. I'll cite your interview yesterday. The Honorable Minister very clearly said that there were cancellations in November when the FDTL was implemented. Then things stabilized. And on 1st of December, there was a meeting between DGCA, Indigo, and the ministry. So what was the need for the ministry to come in when DGCA wanted certain clarifications? Had they got clarifications, they could have sought clarifications from DGCA. Why the ministry? So clarification is not being sought. Extension or exemption is being sought, which did not happen probably. And this is what perpetuated. They said if you
So
don't give us...
no, let me get it
why does
clear.
the ministry
You're
have to come
telling
in?
me You're telling me Indigo sought an exemption on the 1st of December, was hoping that the FDTL norms would be pushed back by a few months, and because it didn't happen, they got caught unawares, or the government, or they expected the government, because they are such a monopoly player, they expected the government to climb down and said, okay, we'll give you 3 more months. That's what you're claiming. Am I correct? Am I right? Captain Amit Singh, am I right?
Yeah. So a clarification, correct. So a clarification is only sought on a rule which is implemented, right? That can I do this? Can I do that? And how do I do it? But what is the need for a ministry to come in for a meeting with DGCA just for a clarification? It is something more.
Okay,
right?
there is something more. Let me just bring in. Let me bring in Jitendra Bhargava at this moment.
Exemption or an extension.
Okay,
So that is
Jitendra Bhargava
the
was.
root cause of it.
You know, we are.
Was Indigo using its monopolistic? No, let's be clear. Was Indigo using its monopolistic position, 66% of market share, to arm twist the government to give an extension to the FDTL norms?
Rajdeep, there are 2 points here. Rajdeep, first is, after the disruption of flight, we are putting this question that should DGCA have asked them to monitor the pilots, etc. Let's take Indigo's performance prior to November 30th. A remarkable airline, professionally run airline, growth-oriented, and everything was going good. It is only after the disruption of flights on 3rd, 4th and 5th December that we are raising up this question of DGCA not having monitored. Now, when you come up with the monopoly condition, let me explain to you, Indigo was not designed to be a monopoly player monopolizing 65% of the market. Let's go back into the history. In 2011, we had 6 airlines. Indigo had 20% market share. Kingfisher collapsed, and Indigo took most of the market share of Kingfisher Airline, increased to 28%. In 2019, Jet Airways collapsed. Market share went up to 50%. And then when Go First collapsed, the market share went up beyond 60%. Now, what was the message here? Many other airlines fell as far as the market share was concerned. SpiceJet is a startling example. From 18%, it came down to 4%. No other airline could get on to increase the market share of any airline once an airline collapsed. Now, imagine if Indigo had not stepped in with the large capacity induction to get the enhanced market share. Capacity deficit in the market, astronomical pricing of fares, etc. would have taken place. Now that this 3rd, 4th, 5th December thing has left a bad taste as to what went wrong. And that is where I said in the initial comments, Indigo must take the entire blame for what has happened. Yes, one can say there could be arrogance
are you saying
on the
DGCA
part,
cannot
optimism on the part of Indigo
are you saying,
that we
sir,
will
are
be
you
able
saying
to
that
manage
Indigo
an
is,
extension from DGCA.
are you saying
but
Indigo
once
is too
it did
big
not
to
get
regulate?
the extension, what they ought to have done was to have truncated their flight schedule so that last-minute cancellations was not to take place and passengers were not inconvenienced.
No, are you saying that Indigo was too big in a way to regulate? That they had to get their act together as a private company? The government, the regulator could do very little?
So that's what I'm saying. Indigo bungled big way. Could be out of arrogance, could be out of complacency, could be out of the belief that we are a 65% dominant market player. Government will probably yield ground and say, okay, take another couple of months, and they did not. And they should not have expected, in my opinion, any extension from the government, because the moment DGCA would have buckled in, there would have been pressure from the pilot community and others that DGCA is not acting independently, but buckling under airline pressure.
Okay, I'll come to Sherbir in a moment, but Sanjay Lazar, quickly respond to what you've heard, because you've got a contrarian view. You believe the regulator should have possibly put a red flag right at the very outset, not allowed Indigo to stretch it, push it till the 1st of December. Am I correct? That no giving extensions, you jolly well get your act together.
Rajdeep, it's like this. Indigo is, like Mr. Kaul said, 90% to blame, but the minister cannot say that he and the DGCA were not responsible. There is a level of collusion inside the DGCA with this organization that you cannot believe. People on the panel may not agree. You know, it will come out if you have a CVC inquiry over, you know, the JDGs passing. The same man who approved increased flights, knew they were cancelling 1,000 flights in November, sat with them on the 1st of December, is the same guy who show causes them, is the same guy who's on the inquiry. I mean, this is a joke.
So you're saying there was collusion? No, 1 minute. You're saying there was collusion between DGCA and the airline.
I am clearly saying it, and so has Amit. And let me be very clear. You're putting the same man who approved an increase. You know, they've increased by 900 flights in winter over summer without having the pilots. They should have checked that, number one. Number two, you know in November they've cancelled 1,200 flights. You sit with them on the 1st of December. The same person who approved the increase then sits in that meeting. Then you find that the same person is issuing the show cause when all crap hits the fan. I mean, let's be very clear. There is shaking hands here, and I'm not going to back down on this point. Let me also say another thing, that Indigo is too big to fail. We will cripple our entire market, unfortunately, and that's why the dispensation had to be given. I'm against it. Indigo should have been...
Can I just for a moment bring in Sherbir Panag? Sherbir, you're a lawyer. Do you believe there's corporate accountability here? There is not just the CEO of Indigo, but it's the board of directors. It's their job to ensure that the company is working according to standards that have been set. These are, as I keep saying, A-listers. They are the ones who should have been seeing whether Indigo had got its act together or not.
Rajdeep, when it comes to a matter of accountability, I think we've got to look at it in two prisms. First and foremost is Indigo's professional management, Every board of directors has a legitimate expectation to rely on its professional management, and they have A-listers in professional management as well. And then comes the culpability of the boards. Absolutely, this is a historic failure when it comes to Indigo. But I want to build a nuance in here to sort of so that we can very squarely put the issue into play. Rajdeep, this at its heart is a flight safety issue. The flight duty time limits is not some socialist measure that was being imposed, but rather was being done to ensure safety of Indian aviation. Indigo, rather than being a responsible large player in Indian aviation, fought this tooth and nail and did every trick in the book. These issues started in 2024. They even in 2020, in mid 2025, they knew the deadline was coming up for first November. So the fact that Indigo was poorly prepared and they had such poor systems is something that they are accountable for, and they are the ones who submit their flight schedules. Nobody can conjure up.
So you're saying they put profits above safety? You're saying they put profits above safety?
I've said this on record that Indigo would rather risk safety, risk an aviation incident, risk the safety of passengers rather than focus on flight duty time limits. Their entire strategy since the matter has started of the FDTL norms has been to delay them. And even on 1st of December, it was to delay them. Rajdeep, tell me, look at the dates from 1st of June all the way till 1st of November, and look at what the dates are going to be from 1st of November to February 2026. Is this not enough? Was there not enough time up to 1st November? And what is magically going to change between now and February, barring the fact that that Indian aviation was brought to a standstill? So that's part one of the issue. And I've been very unequivocal on this particular position all across since this incident broke.
Okay.
The second part is the regulator. Rajdeep, if I had to draw a parallel as somebody who's acted on virtually every major corporate governance crisis in the last couple of years, if the Reserve Bank of India was undertaking such a large change to company or to IT systems of banks or such a large scale reform, it would have had significant more scrutiny. It would have ensured that the systems are in place. And the RBI does that. And that is the reason why we don't have the kind of failures that we have. And they learn very, very quickly from it. And there are several other unsung heroes.
Right.
The DGCA is to blame. The DGCA cannot look the other way and say, oh, their crew resource management system was a failure. Are we going to blame this whole thing on a software glitch at this juncture? We have so much regulation in this country that you can't change your name without 17 NOCs. And you're telling me a specialist sector with a specialist regulator. This isn't a regulator looking into leave and license agreements. This is a specialist regulator looking at a specialist sector. Did not audit the crew management systems and the softwares out here. So I completely don't buy this. The DGCA must be held to account. The DGCA must be held to account that it too had 2 years, just like Indigo did, and failed to do anything, and rather continued doing the Indigo's bidding, and was okay with a safety norm being delayed, as in for a regulator to have a safety norm being delayed. Is tomorrow should SEBI be okay with mutual funds not paying people in T+2 days? Should the RBI not care about our banking security? As in, this is ridiculous on all levels and preposterous for anyone to say DGCA is not to blame.
So you've got, I think, some element of clarity. Yes, principal blame on Indigo as the carrier, but the regulator cannot escape accountability in this instance. Therefore, it brings me to my second question on the roundtable. Action against Indigo. Is it too little, too late? Captain, do you want to take this first, Captain Amit Singh? Do you believe that the government now has stepped in, said 10% of their flight operations have been suspended and will be given to other airlines, presumably that the CEO is being called again and again every day as if the DGCA now is finally... Do you believe it's enough?
Head of the organization is the accountable manager. And accountable manager is basically accountable to the regulator. If the minister says or believes that he can fire the CEO, basically he can fire the CEO because he's the accountable manager. The accountable manager is interviewed and appointed by DGCA. So that is, a lot of people have been discussing that in a private organization, you cannot fire the CEO. But an accountable manager can be fired on account of being appointed by DGCA for discharging certain duties.
But is the
And
10%
for example, if there's a
cut in flight operations really a solution?
no, 10% is an eyewash because no airline operates up to 100% of their schedule. There's always cancellations. Indigo has been operating about 90 to 95%. So, anyways, if you cut 5%, they would be operating like normal, and another 5% would be a slight dip in their operations. So that won't hurt them any much,
Okay.
too much. So idea is there has to be penal action. What hurts them? Firstly, why is the accountable manager still there while all this is happening?
No, so what are you
Because
saying?
in
No,
case
one
there is
minute,
a
one minute.
corruption,
No, 1 minute. When you say, sir, 1 minute. When you say accountable manager, you're saying the CEO should be sacked? That the government is going to decide about sacking the CEO? That's Indigo's responsibility. How can the government of India decide to sack a CEO of a private airline?
no, like I said, he's the accountable manager. DGCA gives the go-ahead for the accountable manager. DGCA can refuse the appointment of the accountable manager because he has to undergo an interview with DGCA before being appointed. So they can take away that privilege from the CEO that you're not the accountable manager. We'll appoint somebody else as accountable manager.
Okay,
So that
Sanat
can happen
Kaul?
anytime.
Sanat Kaul, you worked with the government as a former joint secretary. Do you believe the government, the minister already said, even in my interview yesterday, that if the need comes, if I find it was willful negligence on the part of Indigo, we can sack the CEO. Do you believe that's the government's job?
That's a technicality, but he's already pointed out that there is a concept of accountable manager. So that accountable manager, is the issue, and that can be sacked. Now, accountable manager is a very important thing for an airline. It can't run without an accountable manager. So they will have to appoint somebody who is acceptable to DGCA. Now, while I'm talking, I'd like to raise a couple of other points. One is the DGCA's office itself. Around earlier, they had thought of having a CAA's, a civil aviation authority, which is there in UK and other places, which will be independent. It'll have much bigger staff. It can recruit its own people. It can appoint. Today, DGCA is probably 50% staffed. It is totally a subordinate office of the ministry, and therefore to call it independent under the Act is being rather foolish. So the DGCA itself is, it's a very difficult job for DGCA. Plus, they keep appointing people who have no experience as the director, the director general. So these are issues which I think need to be now probed into. That why that I said 5 or 10% is the blame of DGCA. Why were they not looking into this aspect when they were approving the winter schedule? That do they have enough pilots or not? Although I would say, yes, it is 100% responsibility of the Indigo, of the airline concerned, and the board of directors and others to make sure. Yeah.
But can I come, Dr. Susilan, you head a private airline, you all work with charters. Do you believe the government of India can put pressure on Indigo to decide who should be their CEO?
Rajiv, I've been running a commercial airlines in India by name Air Odisha, the first Udan route which we started. So I know we had a CEO and the DGCA never took their interview. They just give a NOC. Even you might heard that there was a Turkish guy was about to join Air India, but he had not got the NOC. That's why then later on Campbell came in to lead Air India. So definitely there's no interference of DGCA on the appointment of a CEO. Only the NOC required from the DGCA. So sacking a CEO from the airline definitely is a call of the board of directors because it's a private company. It's not any more government company like Air India earlier. So definitely the call have to take by the board directors of Indigo itself. And now when you come to the monopoly, when you said the monopoly of Indigo, I tell you, like there are so many airlines got collapsed due to these airlines because they eat up the market. They don't let other small players to operate in particular routes. If I give you an example, in the Raipur flight, where the Flybig Airlines were operating in a cost of 2,500 rupees, whereas Indigo came in and started operating A320 aircraft. And within 3 months, Flybig had moved out of the same sector. And after 6 months of the same, the Indigo stopped operation in that route because they don't want anyone to operate in the routes.
You're saying Indigo misused its monopolistic position. They managed to get schedules that suited them. They therefore were able to enhance profits and according to at least Sherbir, often at the cost of safety. Unfortunately, of course, we don't have someone from Indigo. I wish we had. They've not yet come on camera to explain their side of the story. I hope they do in the days ahead. But Sanjay Lazar, this whole question of is the action of the ministry and DGCA simply an eyewash? You call the CEO every day to your office as if you're fully in charge. All of this should have happened, many believe, in November or even before that. Do you believe that sacking a CEO, sacking Peter Elbers will actually solve anything?
Rajdeep, I'd just like to weigh in on that part because Amit has said something and Dr. Sushilan has said something. Two things. One is the accountable manager officer under the car is answerable to the DGCA. It may not be Peter Elbers. In this case, I think it could be the COO. Okay, I could be wrong. I will be stand corrected. The second thing is the CEO, and like Dr. Sushilan said, gets Home Ministry approval. Remember this. Forget about DGCA, gets Home Ministry approval because aviation is a important sector. So therefore,
but it's a private company, Sanjay. How can the government
It doesn't
decide?
matter, sir. It is aviation. Aviation is a sensitive sector. Every CEO of all the private airlines are bound to get Home Ministry clearance. You can check.
No, it's one thing to get Home Ministry clearance. It's another thing to decide on the sacking. No, all I want to know, what is what according to you, Mr. Lazar, is the right action to take? Give me the action that you believe will act as a deterrent.
Please, Rajdeep, I was pointing out the technicality of removal or non-removal. Okay, let's come to what is the correct punishment for the airline. They've been docked 10%. I do believe they'll get a large monetary fine, probably a record monetary fine by the DGCA and the government of India, whatever permits within the act and the law. I also believe there's going to be huge scrutiny and they will be brought to question on the induction of aircrafts subject to their having pilots. I can see this coming in the future.
Sanat Kaul, you wanted to respond. Please go ahead, sir.
No, I mean, basically what I was saying was that DGCA has a responsibility, which is definitely there, and they must look into all this, but they are crippled. They are crippled, and the concept of Civil Aviation Authority, which was passed by the cabinet, which was put as an act in the parliament, was then not taken up by the new government.
Sir, you made that point. You believe that the DGCA has been crippled, but Jitendra Bhargava, is this action too little, too late? Is this optics? When you have the DGCA, for example, the CEO of Indigo doing folded hands before the minister, is that all optics according to you? Or has the government sent out a tough message?
No, the action has been too little, too late on multiple fronts. Third, fourth, fifth, when did the government react and when did the government give 10%, curtail the 10% flights of Indigo and give it to other airlines? Could have been done earlier. Displeasure was known to the Indigo that, look, we are not happy with the way Indigo has behaved or Indigo disrupted the flight schedule, brought Indian aviation a bad name. Now, to me, the board has got the message. The board should take a call sooner than later, but immediate sacking of the CEO would only throw the airline in greater turmoil. At this moment, the priority is to put the operations back on track, ensure the minimum inconvenience is caused to passengers. Imagine if the succession plan within Indigo is not there, what would happen if Peter Elbers is to go away at short notice and leave the airline in turmoil? They wouldn't know anything about it. So in my opinion, let things unfold in a systemic manner. Ministry of Civil Aviation has made its displeasure known. The fact that Peter Elbers has been summoned and made to answer, the Indigo has given an answer that we do not really know or we can't identify the real problem. We'll take 15 more days time to come back and give you a reply to the show cause notice, etc. All can't be accepted. And the LOBs that they put forth on the second day, 4th of December, was simply not bought by anyone, neither the traveling public, nor the aviation expert, nor the DGC, etc. So I don't know why Indigo was trying to hoodwink, not be truthful to the DGCA, the regulatory agency, to the traveling public, to him, which they owe really an apology, and they have apologized, though belatedly.
Sherbir Panag, do you believe it's too little, too late? What would you like to see that would restore, according to you, confidence in such a situation? Since you deal with corporate governance, should the board of directors have acted earlier? or leave it now to DGCA?
So, Rajdeep, I think each party has to do their own job in this. And the board, no board of directors of any company is expected to do day-to-day management. The day-to-day management is with professional management. So therefore, it's a little unfair to put the entire element at the door of the board. It's also, I think, what Indigo needs to do is come out clearly in terms of what did professional management tell the board, and how did the board respond to that? Now, both of them are complicit, that there's nothing that can be done, but that information isn't there. And till then, given the personalities involved, I would reserve my comments. I don't believe Air Chief Marshal Dhanoa and Ms. Pallavi Shroff, knowing them professionally and knowing their professional reputations, would be sleeping on the wheel. So I think I'd wait to see what professional management did. But now that everything is out in the open, the question that for the board is, and it's not, I wouldn't agree with the statement that, if a CEO has to be replaced, that's the job of a nomination and remuneration committee of the board. This is ultimately a very large enterprise, which is governed. So there's a nomination and remuneration committee, which is supposed to look into elements of succession planning and ensure that in moments such as these, it's able to.
Because you've got the managing director, Rahul Bhatia, who's sitting in Switzerland. I just want to try and understand, do you believe someone on this show has today said all of this was collusion between DGCA and Indigo? These are serious charges. Who investigates them? DGCA, which is the same which is the agency which is being accused of collusion. Who investigates it? Do you have an independent inquiry? How do you actually come to the bottom of it?
So I think we've got to look at it in multiple, we've got to break this down into multiple aspects. We've got to, first and foremost, we definitely need an inquiry by an independent probe and not some random folks from DGCA who are the sort of usual lackeys who keep doing these things. But we need an independent probe into how did the flight, let's go back to basics. This is a flight safety issue. This isn't Indigo, this isn't a software glitch. This isn't operationally suddenly they forgot how to put this together. They were hoping this flight duty time limit norms do not come into picture, and they were also hoping that the can get kicked down as far down as possible. And an independent inquiry is absolutely needed to see who from DGCA was okay with this can being kicked as far down as it was.
Okay.
So I think for that we need one. The second part, Rajdeep, I think there are too many sub layers of what needs investigation and who needs to do it. Indigo's abuse of dominant position, some very important points have been raised. That needs to be investigated by the Competition Commission of India. Somebody at the DGCA took all these Indigo plans in. They approved their
schedules.
Their flight schedules and their winter flying schedule. That person needs to be taken to task, and so do the people at Indigo who submitted those flight schedules get taken to task. Mm-hmm. Lastly, on this whole thing about should the DGCA remove the CEO is ornamental in this. There's a whole host of people. In these cases, world over, there's always a challenge of doing one small symbolic action of letting the CEO go. And I don't agree with this element of where we are saying that there's an NOC only. As in, what is the NOC? A rubber stamp. Pilots can't leave this country without NOCs. You should talk to a couple of pilots and you'll get a fair sense of the kind of loops the DGCA makes them jump through, whether it's medical tests or otherwise, which is all fair, and they should do that. So are we saying the CEO of the country's largest airline's appointment is an NOC? No, it's not. There's a fit and proper test and standard that is established. Right. It's established for bank MDs as well.
I have 10 minutes on the show. I want to turn to a third big question. Is the business model of a private airline under siege? And we've seen this over the years. Several Indian airlines have ceased operations over the years due to financial distress, mergers, insolvency. Remember Jet Airways, Jet Light, formerly Sahara Airways, operated from the mid-90s to 2019, shut down, heavy debt, intense fare wars. Naresh Goyal was even prosecuted. Air Deccan, operated from 2003 to 2008, was merged with Kingfisher Airline, which itself collapsed in 2012 under a massive debt exceeding 9,000 crores. Vijay Mallya is out of the country, who was the promoter. Paramount Airways also folded due to debt. Go First, earlier known as Go Airlines, operated from 2005 to 23, also entering insolvency. Smaller airlines, MDLR, Air Pegasus, Air Costa, Zoom Air, all have shut down. Air Asia and Vistara ended operations, were merged into Air India more recently. So it hasn't been, and we'll put out the profit numbers in a moment, but Dr. Susilan, since you have been experience of running private airlines, is this an unviable sector across the world?
Yeah,
Not easy to
definitely.
make money on aviation, but in India, it's particularly accentuated. Rahul Bhatia and Rahul Gangwal of Indigo may have got lucky at one time, but it's not enough.
So there is a say that if you want to be a millionaire, spend billions in aviation business. That's what, because you lose money in aviation business, especially when it comes to Indian market. Definitely the taxes are very high. The fuel price keep fluctuating in favor of the government, not in favor of the airlines. Definitely it's not a profitable sector within India. That's why no investor want to invest in commercial airlines in India, because whichever example we see, whichever case studies we see, we always see the airlines are collapsing in India. I had operated my own airline, Air Odisha, in Udan route, but it takes months for me to get the subsidies from the airlines. The airports were not ready. Now we have
Right.
162 airports, but when we started the operation and when we had bidded around 74 routes under Udan scheme, we got only 10 operational airports. My aircraft was parked in the hangar for days because there was no airports. So now,
Okay.
definitely the taxes are very high. If you go for now private airport, if you land in that private airport, the taxes are huge. So we don't want to fly in that. So if you take an example of Bombay airport, we don't want to fly to Bombay airport because we want to go to Pune, because the airport comes under Airport Authority of India and taxes are less there. So definitely,
Okay.
business of aviation in India is not profitable.
Okay, let me bring in more voices on that. Sanjay Lazar, there's so much of talk. When I asked the minister, he said, our plan is to have 5 competitive airlines over the next 5 years. That's what will bring passenger fares down, will make the industry more competitive. It's not happening. I've heard this over the years. Open skies, I heard Praful Patel talk about it 20 years ago. Now I hear Mr. Naidu talk about it, Ram Naidu talk about it. Is that possible or not? Is there something structurally wrong?
Rajdeep, there are 2 points in this question. One is there space? There is room for at least one full service carrier, in my view, and one really ultra low cost or regional carrier. We have space. But like Dr. Sushilan says, we are structurally long. 50+% is ATF. Then you've got the taxes, your airport taxes, CUTE, UDF, all this. So it makes it a challenging task for any entrepreneur to start an airline and grow the way Indigo or Spice or Akasa has grown. Excuse me. But government needs to look at this very carefully. If it wants more competition, if it wants to avoid the monopoly that it sees from Indigo, then it's got to restructure the operations. It's got to reduce taxes. It's got to make it more friendly so people come in and they're welcomed in with less of this burden. So that's one very important thing. That's the only way we are going to see expansion of this aviation sector. Otherwise, like he says, billionaires will become millionaires.
Right.
And sold up 15, 20 airlines have shut shop since 1992. And we'll only expect more to happen.
We've got limited time. I want to bring you in, Jitendra Bhargava. I remember you used to write about Air India. Once you left Air India, about how Air India's monopoly had in a way destroyed the, or the government ended up destroying Air India because of the excessive governmental control. Today, open skies, private airlines, and we have many of the same crises coming back, crises of governance, crises of not expanding the sector fast enough. Even though the number of airports are increasing, the number of passengers are expected to grow exponentially. There seems to be somewhere something structurally wrong. What's the solution? Mr. Bhargava. Okay, let me try and...
The government
Yeah, go
should
ahead.
stay away from the aviation sector.
Yes?
No,
Go
the
ahead.
government should simply stay away from it. They've let the private enterprise come in and run it. Yes, there are flaws in the system at the moment as the Indigo's climbing to the market share, dominant player, 65% market share, but that's been entirely because they could seize the opportunity when an airline collapsed. Now imagine if the minister says there is room for 5 airlines, big airlines in the country. The question is, who will cede ground or market share? Indigo already has placed orders for 1,000 aircraft. Air India 570. Both of them account for 90% domestic market share. And in the beginning, Rajdeep, just one correction. You made a statement on the number of pilots you had per aircraft, Indigo and Air India. Let's not forget that Air India has a large number of long-haul, large-capacity aircraft. So the requirement when you have the rest period and all, The requirement is more in the case of Air India as compared to an airline which is operating medium-sized or small aircraft on short-haul sectors.
You know, Captain Amit Singh, in a lot of the discussion so far, we haven't spoken about pilots, their concerns. You speak to them off the record, they wanted these FDTL rules. Now they've been pushed back to February. Is that a fear that pilots' concerns at the moment have lost out because of all that's happened in the last week? There are genuine concerns over their safety stress levels.
See, if you see the history of FDTL, right from 1992, 2007 FDTL was issued. It was kept under abeyance because of pressure from the airlines. Then 2011, another FDTL came. 2012, there was Mangalore crash. FDTL was more stringent rules were implemented, but again, there was a pushback from the airlines. It was kept under abeyance. And again, 2019, it was issued. 24, again under abeyance. So there's always a push from the airlines, and for some reason, the rules which are meant for safety are kept under abeyance. So that is
that's the point. That's my fourth question. How to make, which is exactly my question. How do you make India's skies safer and more competitive? How do you get more players and make them safer? Do you think it's possible, Captain, to do both? Make the skies safer, but bring in more players?
Aviation is highly regulated, or rather over-regulated. Indigo itself is not a true low-cost airline. It's a hybrid airline, because the regulatory requirements are so much that one person can do only one job. Like a security person can only do a security job. He cannot do somebody else's job. So therefore, the overheads are very high. So that is the problem, rationalization. So we have to rationalize. And then fuel is the biggest issue. Fuel, there was a proposal about two decades back that airport authority and the airlines will get their own, will import the fuel. So that will lower the taxes rather than coming through the state. They will get their own, they'll have their own system of fuel. So that alternative arrangements may be looked at.
So there's greed on the part of the state, which wants more to collect more revenue through fuel taxes. There's greed on the part of airlines, which will resort to shortcuts. That question to you, Sanat Kaul, how to make India's skies safer and more competitive? Is that possible? Or will we come back to this debate 5 years from now yet again? So many Indian airlines have collapsed in the recent past.
Yes, I think this is practical because there is an imbalance. Airports make money, airlines lose money. Now, we have an economic regulator for airports, but there is no economic regulator for airlines. I think there is a need to look into this, that why is the airports are making money, but airlines are not making money. Because of competition, yes, but there are many other reasons. The fuel, the taxation, the everything which is loaded on to the airlines, of course, they sell their tickets after adding all these things. But there is an imbalance in my view, and the passengers suffer because they have to pay high. But I think there is a need for a full study of the aviation sector rather than piecemeal about airlines and airports separately.
Right. Sherbir, do you see more players coming in, or will the Indigo experience make them even more diffident? Even Rahul Bhatia himself is expanding reportedly into the hotels business of Indigo. He's not necessarily only looking at the airline anymore. Do you see more airline players coming, given the fact that across the world, it's not easy to make money on airlines? I just want to put some figures. The world's largest aviation market, United States, 876 million passengers, 5.2 increase from the previous year. China followed with 741 million passengers, growth rate at 18.7. UK ranked third, interestingly, to 261 million passengers, up 7.3. Spain and India comes fifth, handled 211 passengers, increasing 11.1 rise. So there's a percent rise. So there's an increase in passengers, increase in airports. Will there be an increase in airlines, making the sector more competitive and hopefully safer?
Rajdeep, it's a long shot. There's a lot of structural reform necessary before that happens, but let's give credit where it's due. Indigo brought in a fair degree of innovation into the system and did a lot to cut costs. Sometimes, and now as we've learned over the years, they've lost their way, and including at the cost of safety. But what we would need, and I'm going to quote Ronald Reagan here when he said the 9 most dangerous words in the English language are, "I am from the government and I'm here to help." When we have the DGCA is the most successfully lobbied regulator in the country. There's a leaf they need to take out of the book of other regulators that also look into significantly heavily regulated sectors. That needs to change. Government policy needs to change. It needs to be a place where commerce happens. There is regulation on norms and safety, but there is not, we are not, if we are going to end up in this price cap mechanism, etc., that's not going to inspire confidence either for markets or for new players. So long way to go, and I'm afraid you may just be sitting here 5 years later and asking the same question now.
No, you're calling for the reform of the regulator. You're saying start.
I'm saying regulator and government.
You've got to deregulate the regulator in a way, or the regulator focuses on core issues rather than entering every little sector of the aviation business. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. I think we've got a sense from all of you of the challenges that lie within. Did it take a crisis like Indigo for us to wake up to it? That's the question that will be asked. But sometimes in India, it takes a crisis for suddenly reform to take place. The aviation sector has ridden into the open skies more than 2 decades ago. But now, in many ways, it's been a wake-up call, a reality check. And that I appreciate that all my panelists, I hope, have given the government, in a sense, a reality check. You're having a smile on your face, Mr. Lazar. What do you want to say? I'll give you a 30-second. What is the final word?
In all this turmoil, I believe there's a ray of sunshine. And that ray of sunshine, like, Sherbir just pointed out, is that we can restructure our complete aviation infrastructure, whether it's redoing the DGCA, redoing, the pilots and an operational structure. This is a chance to take off in a clean slate. And I hope that this ministry and the PMO and everybody looks at it, because we are the fastest growing aviation market on earth. We are going to be number 3 in the next 5 years. And I look forward to bright aviation. Indigo is a game-changing airline. It's going to continue to grow. Of course, we know that. We want to see others. So I hope and pray that we can make the right steps. Criticism is not about wanting the other guy to fail. It's about wanting them to succeed within the fine and narrow. That's what I want to say.
Okay. I think let's end it there. We've heard several fine voices, and I appreciate each and every one of you taking the time off to join me on the show. Thank you so much. Let's hope for safer and more competitive skies in the new year. Thanks for watching. Stay well, stay safe. Jai Hind, Namaskar. That was the Roundtable. Bye for now.